Despite receiving personal death threats and even threats against his family, a pastor and school administrator in Florida is refusing to back down from his biblical worldview. Barry McKeen, pastor of Grace Community Church of Valrico, Florida, which also runs a Christian school, has been under fire ever since NBC News published a story that called attention to the school's commitment to biblical sexuality. Rather than back down, McKeen released a video address in which he stated that the school would not back away from its commitment to follow the Bible. And though the threats have been persistent, so has he. Joining me now to discuss this is Pastor Barry McKeen. Pastor McKeen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I tried to give a bit of a background, but tell us how this all started.
Yeah, it kind of hit us out of the blue here late last week. Really what happened is in June, we just sent out an email to our parents, and we do this every year. During the summer, we just kind of remind the parents of certain policies. Maybe we saw some things in the previous year or cultural things changing. And so sometimes throughout the summer, we'll just send out a few emails here and there to remind our parents, hey, here's our policy on this or that, which they already know and they sign each year before school starts. And we didn't hear anything back from any parents when we sent that out on June 6th. And then as we started school on the 15th of August, I began getting calls from the NBC reporter, and I just largely ignored them. And then by Thursday, an article appeared, criticizing the policy.
Did NBC seem surprised that those were your beliefs?
Yeah, that's been kind of the most remarkable thing for me, is that anybody would be surprised that a Christian school would have these beliefs. But, as he was calling, the reporter then sent a host of emails where I could read the questions, which I didn't respond to. But, the questions were very loaded. And yes, it just seemed surprised and shocked that we would have such a policy. And when I finally talked to a few media outlets who I thought were going to be more fair, I said the same thing to them. It's not just our Christian school. Almost every Christian school, probably in America, certainly the ones I know in the state of Florida, have the same exact policy. And probably I know of about 60 schools that the policy is verbatim as ours. I mean, it's literally word for word.
And let's be clear about this, because we haven't read your policy yet. But these are orthodox statements about marriage and sexuality and gender. Basically, that boys are boys and girls are girls. You can't switch, and people shouldn't have sex with people they're not married to. Is that a general statement about your beliefs?
Yeah, that's completely accurate. It starts with human sexuality as the title, and it says God designed marriage between a man and a woman, and sex should only happen inside of that relationship. And then it just kind of goes on from there. And there's a section we did get into because of the cultural things going on that, hey, if your child is a boy, we're going to call him he, and we're going to call him by his name or some version of his name on his birth certificate. Nicknames are fine even. But we're not going to play this game where we call boys girls and girls boys and other things like that. And we're not going to allow homosexual relationships within the school, just like we don't allow heterosexual relationships, in terms of kids can't come into school and be bragging and talking about how, what they're doing in their lives. We don't believe any of our students should be sexual at all.
So, Pastor McKeen, this came to the attention of NBC News. They run a story. There is outrage around this. Tell me what that's been like.
Yeah, so the first few days, I think after NBC wrote the story, and the first day and a half to 2 days, it was mostly picked up by liberal type organizations. So the phone calls were in the thousands. We had all kinds of staff answering the calls. My wife and I have answered some, and just the most vile, hateful things. And there was some threats made against my family. A person threatened to burn my house down. Another one threatened to come find and kill my family. And we had massive authority presence here and turn those things over to them. And we've had to spend thousands of dollars on added security at our school just to make sure our parents feel safe and our kids are safe here at the school.
In a similar situation, we've seen a lot of people express regret, express remorse, apologize for the pain that they've caused, promise to listen. We haven't necessarily seen that from you in this case. Why not?
Well, I think a couple things. This is a policy that's been in existence for the entirety of our school's 49-year history, number one. Number two, we don't We don't hate people, and that's what bothered me so much about the NBC article. And then it was picked up by our local NBC affiliate, who did an interview live with a mother who had pulled her child out of the school, and we were painted as hateful. They said that I went into chapel and said that if you're gay, you're going to hell. I've never said that. I've never uttered those words. I don't believe that. I believe any sin will condemn you to hell if you don't know Jesus as Savior, and so I would never say that. And we're not going to apologize for standing for what God has said. I mean, God has spoken adamantly, very specifically. There's not a gray area here on this particular subject. So we're not going to back down, but we've never hated anybody. And frankly, I think the maybe hilarious thing about this whole story is we have never expelled anybody for this policy, for violating this policy.
Well, Pastor McKeen, I just want to say on behalf of the students who are watching this, and I know the students in your student body, these conflicts with the culture are more real than ever. And I think it is more important than ever that young people see our parents, our pastors, our leadership showing this kind of courage and grace under fire, because it's coming to them as well. And if you don't provide that example for them, they're not going to know how to handle this in the future. So on behalf of America's kids and the church as well, thank you for your courage, but also thanks for coming with us today.